Hello everyone, my name is Prajakta Dhage and I am from Department of Zoology, KTHM College, Nashik. Today I'll be taking a class for BSC for first semester. The subject that we are dealing with is Animal Diversity Part 3 and the paper is the first paper. The chapter that we are going to start with or begin with today is Introduction to Class Amphibia. This is the first lecture of the particular chapter. Now, the topic that we are going to deal with is general characters of amphibia. Let's begin. Now, the major event in the animal history was a shift from aquatic to terrestrial mode of life. Amphibia meaning amphi is double or both and bios is life. So amphibia means having or living in both land as well as water, or adapted to live in both land as well as in water, or terrestrial environment as well as in water. So these amphibians have evolved from fishes. Thus they are partly adapted to live on land and partly in water, and can switch between aquatic and land environments. They are not fully adapted for terrestrial life also. There is no doubt that the amphibians have sprung up from fish-like ancestors, and that in turn give rise to reptiles. Thus, amphibians consequently hold very important intermediate position between the fishes and the reptiles. Initially, the amphibian members were living in water, but some species have changed their behavioral adaptation as they grow after larval stages and comes out of the water. This adaptive radiation developed the primary air breathing structure, which then got modified into lungs that enables them to inhabit terrestrial environment. The larval stages of all the amphibians are exclusively aquatic. They have no scales on their bodies. This character differentiates them from fishes. They have three-chambered heart. Mucus secreting glands are present on the skin. Frogs, toads, salamander, etc. are the examples of amphibians. So this was a general introduction about what amphibians are. Now we'll move on to the classification position, or where they are placed in the particular clade, or where do they belong to. So in the classification they belong to the group Craniata and subphylum Vertebrata. Why? Because presence of vertebral column. Now in this they belong to division Gnathostomata, where they are again placed under superclass Tetrapoda. Now in Tetrapoda they are the first class under Tetrapoda. You can see it in the red color box. Let's move further with classification. Now if you see these organisms, if you have seen a frog or if you have seen a salamander, right, these are aquatic or semi-aquatic. Why semi-aquatic? Is because see, their larval stages are going to be, if you have seen the tadpoles, which are the larval stages of frogs, they are completely found inside the water, right? In case of frog also, it will spend some of its time in water, some of its time on land. It is able to survive both in land and as well as in water. That is why aquatic or semi-aquatic, you will find them in the fresh waters, right? Now these are carnivorous organisms and they are tetrapods having two pair of limbs. Okay, so they are aquatic or semi-aquatic carnivorous tetrapod vertebrates. Now if you see the body division, the body is divided as distinct head will be present and elongated trunk will be present. Okay, so distinct head and elongated trunk are the characteristic features of these organisms. Now when we talk about neck and tail, they may be absent in some forms, they may be present in another forms. If you take the the absence of the neck and tail, in case of frog, neck is also absent and tail is also absent. In case of salamander, you can find the tail is present. Now another characteristic feature is that generally two pairs of limbs are present in these organisms. Many of the forms are going to be limbless. Okay, we are going to see the limbless forms of amphibia in the coming lectures. So let's just elaborate this two pair of limbs thing. Okay, now when the two pair of limbs are present, 4 or 5, say they are pentadactyl, 5 toes are present, they are called as pentadactyl. So there are 4 or 5 or maybe less toes may be present. The digits are without claws, so there will be absence of claws in these particular organisms. Okay, now endoskeleton is going to be bony, means that vertebral column is going to be a bony kind of vertebral column. Now exoskeleton is absent. The skin is going to be soft, moist and glandular. Why is the skin glandular? It is for the purpose of respiration, right? And because in case of amphibians, the major part of respiration is also going to occur through skin. So if the skin is rough, or say if the skin is dry, this particular gaseous exchange cannot occur. That is the reason it is moist and glandular. Now pigment cells called chromatophores are also present in these organisms. Our skin is going to bear pigment cells or chromatophores in these organisms. Now let's move on to next point. The next point is the presence of skull. We all know that these organisms are vertebrates, which means that they are having a cranium and which will be made up of bones. Now there are two occipital condyles. What are occipital condyles? Now this are, if you see at the below side of the say skull, there are two round knob like structures, okay, at the base of the skull, which are going to form a place for articulation with the first vertebra. So right, so these two knob like structures are going to fit exactly with the first vertebra, and it will be the articulation site for the skull with the first vertebra. So there are two occipital condyle present in these organisms. Now they have large mouth with homodont teeth. Okay, now what are homodont teeth? Homodont teeth are nothing but these kind of teeth are going to be, all are going to be similar in size and shape, right? Such teeth are referred to as homodont kind of teeth. Now these homodont kind of teeth are located both in upper as well as the lower jaws. So you will find teeth in both the jaws, in upper jaw also and in lower jaw also, and the teeth are going to be homodont type, which are all similar in size and shape. Now there is presence of tongue which is protrusible. What is protrusible tongue? It means that the tongue can be extended out. Such a tail is referred to as protrusible tail. It can be extended out. Now the next point that we are moving towards is digestive system is complete. Okay, so these organisms have complete type of digestive system. They have cloaca present. Now what is cloaca? It is a common opening for the digestive, urinary and genital tract. So the common opening that is present in case of organisms is called as cloaca. And what is this cloaca? It is nothing but common opening for digestive, urinary and genital systems. Okay, now moving on to the next part, that is respiration. How do these organisms respire? Now they respire by means of lungs. Okay, the major other respiratory organ is also going to be the skin, and also they respire by means of mouth lining. Presence of external gills for respiration in case of larval forms. So the larval forms are going to have gills for respiration. What is the reason why they have gills for respiration? Is we have already seen these organisms or the larval forms are exclusively aquatic, right? And this makes it essential for them to have gills for respiration. Okay, now in some forms the gills may persist in adults or may be lost in adults. The adults will only have lungs and skin present, but in other forms the gills may be present in adults also. Now the nostrils will be present and will be connected to the buccal cavity in these organisms. The next point that we are going to see is heart. Now heart is 3-chambered. Sinus venosus is present. Aortic arches are near around 1 to 3 pairs. RBCs are large, oval and nucleated type of RBCs will be present in these organisms. Renal and hepatic portal systems are well developed. Mesonephric kidneys are present in these organisms. Urinary bladder is going to be large and the excretion is going to be ureotelic. What is ureotelic? The excretory product is going to be urea. That is why it is called as ureotelic kind of excretion. Now the brain will not be that well developed in case of amphibians. 10 pair of cranial nerves are present. I have already told you what are what are cranial nerves. The ones which are coming out from the cranial portion are referred to as the cranial nerves. So there will be 10 pairs of cranial nerves present in these organisms. The cold-blooded organisms, they are going to be poikilotherms or cold-blooded organisms. In these organisms, the sexes are going to be separate kind of type, right? And that means that male and female are going to be different. Now the males are going to be without the copulatory organs. Gonoducts open into the cloaca. Okay. Now the fertilization is going to be mostly external. External kind of fertilization is that both the sperms and ova will be released outside the body of the organisms, right? And then outside the body the fertilization is going to occur. Such type of fertilization is referred to as external kind of fertilization. Okay, so what is external fertilization? Where the sperms from the male and the ova from the female will be released outside their bodies, and outside the body the fertilization is going to occur. Okay, now the female are going to be mostly oviparous kind of female. Now what is oviparity or oviparous? Oviparous is like egg laying females are present. The females are going to lay eggs, and then you will have the larval stages, and from the larval stages you are going to have the adult stages in these organisms. Indirect development is going to be present in these organisms. Now indirect development is same thing. Presence of larval form. Now take an example of the frog. So in case of frog, the larval form will be referred to as a tadpole, and which is going to metamorphose into the adult frog, right? This is called as indirect development, where there is going to be presence of an intermediate larval form which is going to later metamorphose into the adult form. Okay, the best examples of this amphibia are ichthyophis, salamandra, rana, then you have siren, you have puffo, you have hyla, etc. So you have salamander, you have frogs present in this particular class. So these were all the examples and the general characters of amphibia. So this, for this particular lecture, it was all from my side, and thank you so much for listening to the lecture.